What would you do if the people you loved most were the ones tearing your life apart? One reckless decision at a time. Lila Carter stood in the cramped kitchen of her one-bedroom apartment, staring at the stack of bills on the counter. The envelopes, some stamped with urgent red ink, seemed to pulse with a life of their own, each one a reminder of promises she wished she'd never made. At 29, Lila had spent her entire adult life trying to hold her family together, but the weight of their demands was crushing her. Her credit score, once a point of pride, was now a ghost of its former self, haunted by debts she didn't create but felt obligated to carry. Growing up, Lila had been the golden child in a family teetering on the edge of chaos. Her parents, Ellen and Marcus, were dreamers who never quite grasped the concept of financial restraint. They'd bounced from one get-rich-quick scheme to another, leaving a trail of unpaid loans and broken promises. When Lila was 18, her mother had convinced her to co-sign a car loan. "It's just this once, sweetheart," Ellen had said, her voice dripping with reassurance. "We'll pay it off in no time." Lila, desperate to keep the peace, signed the papers. That was the first crack in the foundation of her future. By the time she was 25, Lila's name was tied to 3 credit cards, a second car loan, and a personal loan her father swore was for a sure thing in real estate. None of it was for her. She worked 2 jobs of barista by day, a freelance graphic designer by night, keep up with the minimum payments, but the interest rates were relentless. Her parents always had an excuse: a medical emergency, a job loss, or just bad luck. Her younger brother, Jamie, wasn't much better. At 22, he'd racked up thousands in credit card debt under Lila's name, promising to pay her back when his music career took off. The family leaned on her like she was their personal ATM, and Lila, bound by loyalty and guilt, couldn't say no. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday evening. Lila's phone buzzed with a notification from her bank, another missed payment on the car loan. She called her mother, her voice trembling. "Mom, you promised you'd handle this. I can't keep doing this." Ellen's response was a familiar mix of defensiveness and charm. "Lila, we're family. You know we're good for it. Don't make this a big deal." But it was a big deal. Lila's credit score had plummeted to 480. She couldn't qualify for an apartment lease on her own, and her dreams of starting her own design studio were slipping further out of reach. That night, Lila sat on her couch, staring at a photo of her family from better days. Her heart ached for the love they shared, but she couldn't ignore the truth anymore. Their entitlement was destroying her. She'd spent years believing that saying no would make her the villain, but the real betrayal was their refusal to see her as anything more than a means to an end. The next morning, Lila made a decision. She drove to the local library, where she'd heard about free financial counseling. There, she met Rosa, a no-nonsense counselor with a warm smile and a knack for cutting through excuses. Rosa wasn't what Lila expected. She was in her 50s, with a scar across her cheek and a story that hit too close to home. "I used to be you," Rosa said, her voice steady but kind. "My sister drained me dry credit cards, loans, you name it. I thought I was helping her, but I was enabling her. One day, I woke up with nothing but debt and resentment. I had to learn to say no, not because I didn't love her, but because I had to love myself more." Rosa's words were a revelation. Lila had never considered that setting boundaries could be an act of self-love, not selfishness. Over the next few weeks, Rosa helped her untangle the financial mess. They disputed fraudulent charges, negotiated payment plans, and started the slow process of rebuilding Lila's credit. But the hardest part was yet to come: confronting her family. The twist came unexpectedly during a family dinner. Lila had prepared herself to lay down the law, to tell her parents and Jamie that she was done bailing them out. But before she could speak, Jamie dropped a bombshell. "I got a job," he said, almost sheepishly. A real one, at a recording studio. And I've been going to therapy. I know I've been a leech, Lila. I'm sorry. The room fell silent. Lila's anger, so carefully rehearsed, faltered. Jamie's eyes were sincere, and for the first time, she saw shame in his expression. It wasn't a full redemption, but it was a crack in the cycle of entitlement, a glimmer of hope that her family could change. Her parents, however, were less receptive. When Lila announced she was cutting them off financially, Ellen gasped as if she'd been slapped. "You're abandoning us?" she cried. Marcus slammed his fist on the table. "After everything we've done for you?" Lila's heart raced, but she held her ground. "I love you," she said, her voice breaking. "But I can't keep paying for your choices. I deserve a life too." The fallout was brutal. Her parents didn't speak to her for weeks, and the silence felt like a knife. But Lila found strength in Rose's words and Jamie's unexpected accountability. She started small, opening a secured credit card, budgeting religiously, and focusing on her design work. Slowly, her credit score began to climb. More importantly, she began to reclaim her sense of self. She wasn't just a family safety net. She was Lila Carter, a woman with dreams, talent, and the right to say no. Months later, Lila stood in her new apartment, a modest but cozy space she'd leased on her own. The walls were bare, but she saw them as a canvas for her future. Jamie had started paying back some of the debt he'd accrued, and while her parents remained distant, Lila held on to hope that they'd come around. She'd learned that love didn't mean sacrificing everything. It meant respecting herself enough to set boundaries, even with the people she loved most. The price of her family's entitlement had been steep, but Lila was done paying it. She'd chosen herself, not out of selfishness, but out of survival. And in that choice, she found something she hadn't felt in years: freedom.